Good afternoon, everyone. We will start this session. I don't know if you can hear me well. Perfect. So we will start this session, which really mean to be interactive. So please don't let us talk too much. This is very important to us, to each of us. It's why we changed the whole organization of the room so that it will be we will be face to face. Our aim today is to find solutions to bridge the gap between supply and demand for financing impact manager, first-time impact manager. I will start maybe by introducing myself and give progressively the floor to our speakers. So I'm Laurent Sulin. I'm the program director of formerly ICFA and now ISFA. ICFA and ISFA are two acceleration programs that are initiated from the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs to accelerate first-time fund managers to launch their first-time fund in impact projects, in climate solutions and in social solutions. So this is a public-private partnership between ministries, but also 12 private partners, amongst which Big Four, law firms, impact firms, and so on. So I will not dig too much into that. I will be happy to share my business card if you have any question afterwards. I will quickly introduce our different speakers, and I think that we have a very large panel, so I think it will also help to have interactive question, answer, and brainstorming. I will start from my left. So we have Camille Huret from Beyond Finance. Then we have Stefan Rudolph from EVT. Then we have Cosmin Oltenaou. Is it correct?
Almost.
Sorry for if I missed.
It's okay, it's okay.
From EIB Group. We have also Patrick Nkongo for FPM. And then we have Yossi Azar from Pandan Green. So maybe to give you the big picture, Yossi and Camille are two emerging fund managers from ICFA cohort. So we are still supporting them to launch the first-time fund. And I'll let them introduce themselves in a few minutes, a bit more in depth. Concerning the fishbowl session, so as I mentioned, the objective is really to have it as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, thoughts, do not hesitate to share them. So we want today to map the different challenges that can be faced by fund managers, but also by investors to come into financing first-time fund manager. We want also to build a collaboration framework, so understanding what exists, what kind of challenge, what kind of needs, and exchange experience on that. Enhance communication, so as I mentioned, feel free to interact. And create a collaboration and a collaborative session so that we can have takeaways when we leave this room to improve the matching between supply and demand in financing. I will stop because I already talked too much, and I will leave the floor maybe to Camille to introduce herself, and then we will leave the floor to the first collaborative discussions.
Oh, is it working this way? You hear me? I can speak loud? Okay. Then let's do it this way. Well, nice to meet you all. Thank you for receiving us, Laurence, and thanks for your attention and curiosity. I'm Camille Huret. I'm the co-founding partner of Beyond Finance with my partner Maud Savary-Mornay, who cannot be here today because she's based in Hong Kong. And both of us, we have spent most of our career, 13 years, with a leading impact asset manager. And when we left, we started to devise and dream about the kind of fund we would like to see emerge in the markets. And we've been working on designing this fund, which is the Women Empowerment for Climate, that aims at enhancing the climate resilience of women, mostly in Asia, but as well in Africa. It's a private debt fund, and we've been incubated by ICFA. And we are glad since September to announce a strategic partnership with the Foundation Grameen Crédit Agricole to launch the fund.
Yeah, and I guess I'll continue. Stefan Rudolph is my name. And I'm using data from the Bangladeshi microfinance figures, because my mission as a founder of a startup, which is located in Loft, in the Luxembourg House of Financial Technology, my mission is to make and to show the value of things which today are not considered enough. So, for example, the value of nature, the value of compassion, the value of women in leadership positions. And that's why I'm here, to open also the discussion. And as Laurent said, it's really about interaction. And that's, you can also come in the first row. We want to have a discussion, because for what I stand it's a far stretch, because the things which are really important in life, which is happiness, well-being, health, are today in our economic system not accounted for enough. And that's basically the vision and mission. And we discussed this earlier. Perhaps you're going to talk a little about Bhutan and your experience. And so I'm here for that. Okay. Did you hear me? Yes, all right. And I can give it peut-être plus facile avec la...
Yeah. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Laurence, for inviting. That's a great room, and the format is great. I see basically nobody is on the phone, on the laptop, so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. My name is Cosmin Olteanu. I work in microfinance since 22 years. It gets more every year, no? I started as a loan officer in what was then the leader in microfinance, ProCredit Holding. And I'm with EIB in the private equity unit doing investments in impact and microfinance funds. And again, thanks to Laurence, we just met yesterday, talking about how stars align. I will talk today about impact and microfinance funds, because sorry for the a bit long introduction. 20 years ago, it was all about making microfinance commercial. Then refinancing was an issue. And now we talk about structures like funds. So microfinance practitioners are not used to topics like GP, skin in the game, and so on. So this is my job here today, to share with you a bit of what PE would need from microfinance. Thank you so much, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laurence, for the invitation. I'm Patrick Congo. I come from DRC. I'm CEO of two impact funds, FPM SA, which is a financial company with KfW, Bio, Corded, Incofin as shareholders, and also FPM NGO, which is our vehicle of technical assistance to financial institutions and to end beneficiaries, with AFD, UNCDF, World Bank, AFDB as main funders. So I start my career at ProCredit, like Cosmos, as a loan officer. And I had opportunity to manage the credit department at ProCredit. And via my experience, I implemented the downscaling approach at Bank of Africa, at Standard Bank South Africa, before joining FPM in 2019 as a deputy CEO. And it's only since last year that I was appointed as a CEO. So at FPM currently, we are deploying a huge impact strategy. You know, DRC is a big country in Central Africa. And in terms of population, by 2015, DRC will become the second biggest country in terms of population after Nigeria, and the 8th biggest country in the world. In the meantime, we have peoples, we have women, youth entrepreneurs. They are struggling to meet their financial needs. Via KfW and World Bank, and also FDB, we are deploying some impact instrument which targeting women, youth entrepreneurs, even refugees, you know, and displaced people. In DRC, we have refugees coming from South Sudan. We have displaced people because internally we have war. So we are trying to play our role, and also in climate and in digitalization, because when you see the size of DRC is almost 80 times the size of building, 4 times the size of France. It means that if we want to promote financial inclusion, we need to use digitalization. So I will explain to you how we are building trust among DFI, among funders like World Bank, FW, to support us and to use the same impact indicator, the same framework in terms of impact also, but also in terms of target group. I'm so happy to be here. I hope that it will be very exciting for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the introduction, Laurence, and thank you for the ICFA for organizing this. So it's a pleasure being here at this event. I think it's first time that I had the opportunity, in fact, to come, and the European microfinance, of course, community is extremely important to the rest of the world. So briefly about what we do at Pandan, we are launching a sustainability bond, and we provide funds to inclusive financial institutions in Asia Pacific, and we would be working with them on climate agenda. Of course, gender also goes there, and we basically want to bring finance at scale to those institutions, to climate finance at scale, to emerging, developing Asia Pacific, and we think that there are many obstacles on the way for this finance to come. I think it's a great focus now of many in the world. I mean, of course, in the COP discussions and many other discussions. We are there at this junction, trying to bring this private sector finance from institutional funds, and I would be elaborating on that in this discussion. Just briefly about myself, I'm with a finance background, but over the past 15 years, I moved to Asia. I was based in Asia Pacific, Vietnam, and Thailand, and basically there I was more focusing on impact investments and impact finance and microfinance. And out of this emerged kind of this experience, and together with my co-founders, this Pandan green activity, and the green is missing there on the Pandan, but this activity has emerged, and I'm very happy to really meet everybody here, and really looking forward for a good discussion.
So now you know a bit who is here. So just to leave you a few minutes to think what you would like to share with us, I will maybe start to open the discussion on emerging fund managers here as a speaker, so Yossi and Camille. We maybe start with Camille. So if you had to map your own experience, your challenges, and in finding finance at your end, what would be the key issues you have faced, and if you could share also something that is very important to you and then you have experienced during these 2 last years?
Thank you. Yes, well, in our journey in setting up this new fund, what was striking actually were the entry barriers. Because when you extract yourself from an institution, a structure already existing, and you start something on your own, well, not on our own, we were like 2 female fund managers, the entry barriers are huge. There are several. There is the financial entry barrier. There is the regulation entry barrier. And then there is the navigating the fine line between what you want to achieve with your fund and what is expected from the potential investors in your fund. So in our case, it's like, climbing a mountain one step at a time, and I think we went at a good pace, and all obstacles are being taken away, and thanks to actually some huge help. So I would like to acknowledge, first of all, we received the support of two grants from Convergence. One that was coming from the Australian government, another one from the Canadian government, that helped us really overcome part of the financial entry barrier to this adventure. And then we were very, very glad to be incubated by the ICFA. That was really instrumental for us, and actually in terms of training, and help us navigate the regulation, the European regulation that is not simple, and again that requires quite some infrastructure to be in place in order to be compliant with the regulation. So this helped us a lot. Thank you very much, guys. And the third thing that helped us a lot is finding the right partner to go through and to actually concretize and be able to operate the funds. And it's been a long quest, but we were very, very glad to find the Foundation Grameen Crédit Agricole. Because one of the important things when you find a partnership is to be aligned in your values, to be aligned in the objectives that you want to carry, and as well to have a balanced partnership that recognizes what everyone is bringing on the table. And it's been great because that's what we are achieving with the foundation. So yes, now we are like well advanced in climbing that mountain. We are registered with the regulator. We are passported in Europe, starting the pre-marketing phase, starting the due diligence from the investors, and maybe we will dig a little bit more into the other challenge, which is navigating the various expectations of different kind of investors, plus the regulation that sometimes, especially when you want to make a blended finance fund, may create some confusion, especially in the interpretation of what is a titrization when you want to make several tranches in your fund. So, yeah, I open the floor.
So thank you for this experience sharing. I would like to open the floor to the audience. It's the objective. So is any one of you experiencing actually, and for the moment, any same kind of issue? Would you like to share on it? Yes?
Thank you, Fatinura from Entrepreneur du Monde. I create from 3 years now an impact fund, an equity fund, and it's very, very hard when you are small and when you knock to door to biggest, and always the same argument: you are very small, and come back to us 5 or 10 years. Yeah, it's very, very hard. I don't know if I answer on your question, but I would like to share that for when you create an impact fund with small resources is very hard.
So may I ask you how small your fund is? Because it's very something that is very, I would say, shared with our cohort project managers. So to let you know, most of them, when they apply to ICFA, they apply for, I would say, a dream fund of 50 millions or more. But then when you navigate some fine lines, as mentioned with Camille, you just realize that you might find a pipeline for 10, and then also following investors for 10. So you have to reduce your ambition and to stick to these 10. But it's true then you close the door to bigger investors like institutional investors. So just I'll let you answer maybe.
So first of all, our fund is evergreen. It's not a closed fund. It's harder because there is an exit question. And we start in the beginning with $500,000, and now we are around 1 million at the latest. And it's a particular people to help us for this fund, but institutional, it's very complicated. And as a public institution in France, for example, there is no way, for example, Proparco, we are very small for Proparco, for example. So.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to share their experience before maybe I also leave the floor to Yossi experience?
Hi, Luca, FS Simple Finance. Yeah, maybe just to complement and share indeed also our experience, right? Because not all the funds can grow to 500 million or even beyond, right? There might be great ideas which maybe have even better impact on the ground on a smaller scale, right? And cannot be replicated that much. But indeed, when you go small and even, let's say, 50 or lower, it's more difficult to get the interest of the big DFIs, right? They want a minimum ticket size. The cost come into the picture as well, because you want something that is still financially viable. And for instance, when talking about microfinance, as we're here about microfinance, right? We know Luxembourg is probably the #1 domicile country where you would want to set up your fund, or where also your investors would like to push you to set up the fund. But again, all the costs come into the picture, right? So coming from that angle, for instance, right, I think one very useful thing that could be developed would be a sort of, let's call it a basket funder funds structure, right, where they could not only incubate the funds, right, because I think there's different fund managers that get to the point where they are ready to launch the fund, but then they get stuck because they don't find the right investors. They are too small to get there, right? So to have a sort of platform where these funds can all be integrated in a way that the costs are shared and it becomes feasible also for the small funds that might have only 5 to 10 million, or that require, let's say, a proof of concept or a pilot in order to scale and replicate in other countries and in many other markets, so to say. Just again, one example. Thank you.
Very good point.
Would you like to? You want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll comment on that. I think also maybe it's maybe a good time to introduce some lessons. We held a discussion 3 weeks ago at the Impact Finance Forum held by ICFA. Oh, thanks. And I think there were very, very important lessons which are very relevant to what you were saying. And one of them is that, let's say, there needs to be, for these funds, there needs to be a the structuring, and everything needs to be really in place. I mean, as if you are a very big fund, they would not give you a discount if you are an impact fund, small fund wants to kind of make it, and you are working to save the world. You know, at the moment, it doesn't exist there's no discount there. You need to give, you need to be like a symbiotics. You need to come, you need to present, you have to have all the policies in place, you must have huge governance, you must, you know, and they treat you like that. So I think this point is extremely valid, and why is it that, you know, we have venture capital firms for new startups, and you can easily raise funds if you come up with a good idea, and I know that because, you know, I have friends, we work as hard, you know, I work as hard as my friend, and he already managed to raise like 10 million, and he's around 3, and he's powering forward. While me, I mean, it's extremely difficult struggle to raise the funds for a climate fund because we are in the financial sector. And because they expect, whoever expects to invest in us want to see 100% the money back. They can say, oh, we cannot, we know it belongs to pension funds. I mean, if we're losing the money, it's the pensions of people, families. why is this that in that kind of venture there was investment and in here there's none? There's none. So I think, I mean, a solution, a very important element that needs to come in place is indeed like the incubation, as you say, like an incubation type of maybe a phase 2 ICFA, where providing funds, take the funds into the equity, serious funds, let's incubate, let's provide you the support. Yeah, we may lose the funds. There is 90% chance we lose the fund. But 10%, okay, there's an upside. So, I mean, this model has to be taken into this impact space, into this fund space. Otherwise, you know, the climate emergency, I mean, we are there basically, and maybe it hasn't struck to anybody, but maybe next month there will be some kind of another disaster, and people will again wake up. Yeah, of course, people are now at the COP are talking about how advancing and how to make it happen. But at the moment, there is a climate emergency. We have climate funds here who are struggling to get money, and that has to be changed. I mean, we're talking about, just as a background, we're talking about an adaptation gap of hundreds of billions in developing economies. This adaptation gap, maybe 1/10 of it, only 1/10 is climate finance is provided to actually deal with this adaptation gap. And the amount which is stated, which is like, I don't know, 200, 300 billions per year till 2030, that is an underestimation because we are on the ground. And why is it an underestimation? Because countries, these estimations are being brought up by countries that are actually saying, okay, this goes into our NDCs, these are the needs, but eventually they don't know what the needs are. So if we are in the country and we see the solutions are not there yet, and we cannot even estimate how much it costs to do the solutions, then the countries who are estimating, oh, it will take us 10 million to deal with this issue, but they don't actually have the knowledge how much it's going to take, what is the cost of that. So it's really an underestimation, and we are financing only a fraction of it, and we need to solve that. To solve it for those little players who are trying to raise the money and to bring in the big funds, the billions, which also includes capital markets, and I will touch upon that a bit later. Also wanted to add, just with regards to experience in Nepal. I'm sorry, not Nepal, but Bhutan. I think because Stefan mentioned it, I think it's extremely important when we talk about finance, we talk about climate, there is happiness and well-being. So, I mean, just adding to, from my experience, every meeting we had with the government of Bhutan, there was a representative from the Well-Being Council of Bhutan in order to assess that discussion and to see how is that actually contributing to the overall well-being of the country. So, okay, that's just referring to Stefan's comment, which I think is extremely important.
Yes, thank you very much for taking up that point, because at the end, money is a means to finance something. And if it's about extracting more minerals in a way in which it has a negative social impact, it should be made visible. And what I didn't mention earlier is, well, my startup is in impact measurement. And how can we show, and yesterday it was said, how can we show, how can we create a level playing field for people who have impact strategies, who need to compete with exploitative and extractive industries which are causing harm to society and to the planet, and this harm is not accounted for. So if we would have a level playing field, it would be far easier for your strategy to have success, even if it's small. And I know it's too early, too small. I heard that as well. What I didn't mention is that I was in the cohort 2021 of ICFA with an impact-centric fund, because my background is 22 years of finance. And basically a fund needs, well, at my time, a fund needed to be at least at 30 million in order to have the critical size to pay the auditors, the depository bank, the AFIM, the administrator, the transfer agent, the lawyers, and I wanted to ask if it's possible, how many managers are here and how many service providers are here, so that we target the right questions and as it's an interactive session. So the managers, could you please raise your hands? All right, so we have a lot of managers, great, yeah. Okay, and aspiring, please, yeah, also the aspiring, yeah. Yeah, well, aspiring as well. Okay, and how many lawyers or consultants do we have here in the room? Okay, and if you want to share the rest, what you do is fine later.
We can.
There is another, the world is not just in the fund managers and service providers, Patricia Richter, International Labour Organization, Social Finance. So we collaborate.
Okay.
So we are not a service provider, but we collaborate with fund managers or with service providers. And to your question, we see exactly that. We talk of climate finance, but we are forgetting the most important element, and that's the people.
Exactly.
We might have done it for some other surviving species and not us. And this is in the wording already, because if we continue talking just about climate finance, this is not going to help. So we typically call it a just transition. So just transition finance, just to make sure that just means consider the human being in there, leave no one behind in all the efforts of climate finance. And that's this advisory collaboration function that I think is important, because it falls off when you only enter from the money perspective. And it has a cost at the end as well, I know, so it comes back.
So maybe I would like to jump on one or two comments. I'll leave you the floor in 1 second, but I would like also to jump on the comments you've made on the fund size, which is a critical issue. But aside fund size, especially when you are in a truly new, innovative, impactful project, aside size, you have also the track record, because you are maybe a pioneer into that. And it's also something we discussed with Cosmin yesterday. So I will leave you the floor directly, but I would like also Cosmin to share a bit about, I would say, institutional concerns about why is it sometimes difficult to invest. But please.
No, I just wanted to link up to basically what has been said, right? Because I think the problem is twofold, not only the size or what, this idea that I just dropped to have basically to have better economies of scale, but also that it's not always that you have a one-to-one correlation between the usual player, the most renowned in the microfinance sector, for instance. I don't want to make names, but I say the big and with 30 years experience in fund management that manage 1 billion or more, right? And the best ideas that can come up, right? So you have smaller fund managers that maybe can come up with great ideas, but because they don't have the financing behind of the big players, they also have a shorter lifeline that they can survive until funding runs out, and then the best ideas are basically gone. And unfortunately, the hard reality is also that because it probably is more practical, but you have that the funders, right? They always lend to the usual players, right? Because the KYC are already in place, AML is already in place, money is left at the end of the year, and where does the money get? It's the usual players, right? Because it's just the easiest. And this doesn't really help the newcomers, whereas there would maybe, good I would say, good use of public money, right? That even if money is lost because a new fund manager raises a fund and this is not successful, right? So you cannot repay everything to your investor. Well, at least you give the chance and you allow for new players to actually bring on new ideas and give new opportunities, because I guess that's the only way, if you have diversity of opinions and views, to actually have the industry evolve faster. Thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to the latecomers. I can resonate very well with what you said, and also with what Josef said, because I was on the practitioner side, in microfinance, and I thought, okay, I come to EIB, I have a fantastic value proposition. Impact funds, microfinance by definition supports women. Women are better payers. Climate, I thought it will be a breeze. Well, the answer is no, and it's a clear no. You don't get any points for having an impact fund at the start of the operations. Operations. You get the points at the end. At the signature, you get a lot of points. And this helps you for the second fund. The question is like, we are all young, and then you go to a job and say, look, entry-level position, but you have to have 5 years of experience. It doesn't work, no? So I want to touch on 3 points without making any judgments. It's just information from my experience at EIB in the private equity business, which, again, I repeat, it's something that for microfinance is rather new, and there are people who do this for 20 years in VC, other kind of fields. So the 3 points I want to touch, I want to share from my experience a simple checklist that you know very well, that you went through, you also know very well. Then I want to touch the topic of ticket size, and then I want to touch the topic of financing. So a simple checklist starts with track record. So you want a fund manager and the fund team that has a track record. Of course, if you are a first-time fund manager, you cannot have an institutional track record, but one has to have the track record of the people that are setting up the fund. So you have to have a track record. Again, impact is not enough. You have to have good multiples, and the track record has to be realized, meaning you should be able to prove that I invested in this deal and I got money out. This is one. Second of all, very important, from a private equity investor point of view, is the alignment of interest. The team who comes to present you the potential fund has to put money, has to put skin in the game. And this skin in the game starts at minimum is 1% of the fund size. Yeah, this is alignment of interest, and also the team has to be aligned, meaning from the carry, meaning the carry is, sorry for saying obvious things, but for those who are not in this business, carry is a part of the profit which is distributed to the fund manager after a minimum has been achieved. The carry has to be also distributed to the team. So you cannot have a fund manager saying, look, I'm the main guy, I have a great team, but I will take all the carry, because then the team will not be interested. These are common sense things. You have to put, you have to have a team that pulls and pushes in the same time. Talking about the team, the third checkpoint, the team has to be fully dedicated to the fund. A bad proposition would be to have a fund with very high profile people, but they do this on the side. This doesn't work, doesn't sound well. Fourth checkpoint, fund structure, very important. It has to be closed-ended. Nobody would, it's a bit difficult to invest in an evergreen structure. Why? Because DFIs do not have a mind of their own. The decision is taken by several people, and you would have somebody from the legal or risk department that says, I cannot take my money out. So there are different ways. The simplest way is to have a closed-end fund, 5 + 5 years, 5 years investment, 5-year realization. Then the proceeds are distributed and you go to the second fund and so on. The setup has to be clear. There has to be a fund manager. There has to be a GP, a general partner. Checkpoint number 5. And here we are a bit in a difficult area, because this is a PE fund. Oh, great. So what's your multiple? 1.1. Oh, wow. But my colleague in VC got a 13x multiple. That's a difficult one. Definitely, it has to be above 1. So what you invested should be returned. Here one could play a bit with impact angle. However, in microfinance, what I see, you have mainly debt funds. Debt funds, by definition, are low risk, but low return. I see more innovative fund managers that put, for example, 30% equity. But, very important, not equity in microfinance institutions, because to exit from this kind of equity investments, it's a nightmare. Equity in impact companies. For example, climate service providers. You look at India, there are people who do ice batteries, solar irrigation, etc. If you put a part of this in the portfolio of the fund, then you reap the benefit of an early stage investor in a SME that pushes up your return, of course with higher risk, but the blended profile of the fund fits a good risk-return balance.
Cosmin, may I ask you one question?
Please.
What is enough? What is the multiple for private equity fund, and what would be enough for a debt microfinance fund as a target return, which would be acceptable for IF or IAB for the European Investment Bank?
Great question, great question. Thank you so much, because this is what I had to learn myself in order to sell internally. So, there are two benchmarks. One benchmark is public. This is for private equity funds. This is the Preqin database. One can have access to it against a fee. Yeah, and of course there the IRRs are definitely in the 2-digit area. So we talk about above 10. But internally for debt funds, because you don't measure, it's true, in DFIs are also not completely blind. You don't measure with the same measure a debt fund and the pure PE fund. For debt funds in EIB, we use an internal benchmark, which is the return of infrastructure projects, which is in the range of 6 to 9%. We talk about net, talking about lawyers, etc., and so on. Please.
Because, I mean, given the public nature, right, of EIB, I would expect that once you get your money back and maybe cover for inflation, you should be happy, right? And I'm playing a bit the devil's advocate here, but to return 6 to 9% on a debt fund microfinance, right? That would be counterintuitive and counterproductive, because it means that the fund has to charge very high interest rates to the microfinance institutions, which in turn would have to charge even higher interest to the final borrower. So I think it's even going against the mandate of any impact investor. So.
This is 6 to 9 in hard currency before hedging.
Yes, I was going just to add to your point. Yes, thank you. Just to add to his point. Instead of saying 6 to 9%, maybe something as a premium over the Euribor, or that will also help.
Yes, great.
And that would make
Thank you so much.
5 or 6.
2 points. We are at software plus. Software is 5 something. So, yeah. So we're dead, because I was the CEO of a bank in Zambia, and my colleagues from Triple Jump was giving me the euro from DGGF with a very good rate. The problem is that the euro at the border of Zambia met a hedging wall, and the hedging wall was 40%, 4,000 basis points high. Now, to answer your question, this was also my my shock. I said, okay, so it doesn't add up. And this brings me to my third point, which is funding. So, EIB is a AAA rated institution. Let's say the majority of the investments EIB does, it does from its own balance sheet. How does it fill this balance sheet? It goes on the international markets. It has AAA status. It pools liabilities and invests. This is the mindset of the institution when it judges anything. But in my portfolio I have a fund, an impact fund, 20 million, that invests in cocoa producers. Amazing, like tickets of, I don't know, 20,000. Amazing. How is this possible? Well, it's possible because what DFIs have, they have the so-called mandates. These mandates, first problem, they're unpredictable, and second of all, they are limited. Mandates are monies which are given to DFIs by, for example, governments to be used in a fiduciary basis for impact. There was a huge mandate which finished 3 years ago called the ACP Trust Fund. This was a big pool of money which was given to EIB to invest in African risk ventures, microfinance, and so on and so forth. And with such a mandate, you can do a lot. This 6% becomes 1% that we talk about. The fund size, because my second point was ticket size. No DFI would go for own funds for a ticket below 10 to 20 million. 10 is already borderline, very borderline, 20 million. You can go for lower tickets, high risk, low return. Unfortunately, these mandates are unpredictable. It takes years to mobilize them, but like maybe wishful thinking, such a mandate would have been great for a fund of funds supporting emerging African fund managers. I end on this note, like this.
Thank you, Cosmin. Before I jump to a question of structure, that platform and so on, I would like to jump to, I would say, financing mechanism and de-risking mechanism that were really successful for Patrick, and how this mechanism create trust from institutional investors and how it helped him to have a successful adventure.
Thank you very much, Laurence. At FPM, we play a big role in local market in DRC because we provide medium and long-term funding to financial institutions in order to support the MSME's funding needs. And in the other end, since last year, with World Bank, we deploy a portfolio guarantee focused on impact, and it's a funded guarantee, which means that it gives liquidity also to financial institutions. Today, we are really making progress to see that other DFI are interested to join this vehicle called FPM. So I will touch a little bit also the first question regarding the size of the fund. From 2022 up to now, we succeed to multiply by 10 the size of our balance sheet, on and off. In 2022, we had a balance sheet around $35 million, and today we are close to $350 million. So the trust is very important, but also the alignment of interest. Ourselves, we understand that if you have a good track record and you have enough capacity, the procedure, you have a good KYC, and you will see that DFI will join your instrument. This year, we are signing a contract with FMO and also with FDB to support the need of youth entrepreneurs, women, Greek. Via this portfolio guarantees, because in DRC, we are the first financial company offering such instrument. And the impact is very huge because we have a lot of problems to fix in countries. We have refugees, we have displaced people. And we see also our NGO are providing assistance to these people. And every time we tell them that it's not sustainable, we cannot come just give them 1,100 to feed. We must show them how to fish. But the main barrier was the lack of collaterals, because when they move from one place to another, they don't have collateral. So with World Bank and the KfW, we are in this process to support the need of all these people, but also the trade between our neighbor, Rwanda, Uganda, yeah, because when you visit our country, you will see many women dealing with this problem, getting access to finance. Today, we see that the impact is a key problem. You will see KfW want to follow 10 indicators, World Bank 5, how to put them together in order to move. But also the procurement policies. It's also sometimes difficult to fund to apply the same policies. But I think the main lesson that we learn is the objective of each donors. At FPM, we have implementing this impact agenda also to see how we can contribute to improve some SGDs. And all these DFI, when they arrive to us with their funding, the first discussion is about the impact and what SGD to be impacted. And based on that, we are now building the model in line also of the need of the market. So we have financial institutions, we have banks, we have SACCO, we have microfinance institutions. You will see that in terms of impact, SACCO and microfinance institutions, they are really connected in the rural areas where we can influence agriculture and where we have also more women. It means that when a DFI came with the funding, we need to channel this funding where there is more impact. So this is the strategy that we implement since last year. And today we multiply the balance sheet by 10, and we hope that other DFI will join us. So in order to make sure that all this problem, as I said at the beginning, DRC will become the second biggest country in Africa after Nigeria. We know the problem that Nigeria is facing. So if we are not putting in place a good strategy to support the local players, it quite become difficult. Thank you.
I will give the floor, just after the question here, I will give the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Maybe to follow up on what you said, and I'm just a recent graduate, so I don't have the experience in fund management, which you all have, of course. But what I'm trying to understand is, so we're trying to match supply and demand, but so far, if I understand you all correctly, we've been mostly talking about supply, whereas Mr. Patrick, he also talked about demand. And if we want to match supply and demand, I think we need to understand the demand better. And maybe to give a practical example, once I did a case study about climate-smart agricultural products and financing in Kenya. And from, let's say, the supplier or the financier perspective, it was about reducing carbon emissions, whereas for the farmers, it was a reduction in cost itself. And climate change only came on the third or fourth row. So I'm trying to understand, are we aware about the demand which we try to supply? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely important point that you're making. And I think it was as well what you said, Joseph, about understanding the needs of the final recipients, because it could be easy to come with a top-down approach, saying, I think that's what people need, and then you're completely out of scope. And actually, that's something that in our fund that we are building in, because it's a transformative fund, and one of with a KPI linked loan mechanism. And first KPI that we are going to ask to almost all our investees is to actually conduct a market survey toward their clients, sex disaggregated one, about what are the impact of climate change on them and what do they need, what are their main, and from this we build on products, on improving products, improving distribution, improving the design of products. And I think it's really key as well, not to consider, to co-build the solution with the field, this for sure. And maybe I wanted to rebound as well on the entry barriers and what you said, Cosmin, the skin in the game. That's one. That's a big one because if we want fund managers with track records in what we are doing impact investing. So we are not typical investment bankers. We are not rich, basically. So it's not like our career made us build patrimony that is huge. Plus, we are entrepreneurs who drive disruptive ideas, and we need a diversity in those entrepreneurs. We need women, we need minorities, we need local fund managers, and all those people who have the track record, who have the local knowledge, who have the think out of the box angle, who have the collective intelligence that we need and the diversity in the solutions that we are trying to bring. Well, most don't have the skin in the game. And I think, to me, the skin in the game is important because it should show commitment. But the fact that it says, like, we've had some investors saying they wanted 3%. And that's the same as well. You navigate a fine line because they don't want a too small fund. And so to be able to bring 3% of, let's say, an 80 million fund, that's not given to everyone. So like it limits the kind of talents and innovators that are bringing solutions on the market. And I think that would be, I don't know if it's considered to align the skin in the game with the profile, because we are talking about people who put 2 to 3 years of their life already living on their economies to set up that fund. So that's already quite a commitment, actually. But yeah, that was my point.
Maybe a corollary related to your point and also to the point of fund size. I see a very successful fund manager raising now a 300 million fund. This is their fourth fund. The first fund was 10 million. Of course, this is a long game. This is a very long journey. So if, from my limited experience, if I could give a hint, one should start small with the first aim of creating a track record and getting a bit up to speed with all the bureaucracy and back and forth of running a fund. Then it's already, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 8 years of your life managing a very small fund. But after these 8 years, you have the track record. This is already a big checkbox. Regarding own contribution, there is no way around it. Because, of course, I'm coming from the England and say, we do impact. Nobody cares. Look, I put money if you put money. If you don't put money, I don't put money. It's as simple as this. Why should I put money and you don't put money, 1%? And then you say, okay, but you know, it's too high, the fund. Okay, but for 50 million, it's 500,000. You expect me that you manage 50 million and you cannot put 500,000, that you have to raise that, go talk to family and friends. This is the PE approach, yeah? Can anybody chip in? Okay, we chip in and then you put some money. 3% is a bit, it's a bit exaggerated. But one cannot go around the 1%. One cannot come with a credible proposition saying, look, I want to manage 100 million from DFIs, but I don't put 1 cent of my own money.
The percentage of what you have, that can be below 100% of the fund, that can be already quite a huge commitment when you put more than half of your economies that don't represent 1% of the fund. So I think it proves a commitment. It proves that you believe in what you're doing. It's just, and I think like this level of 1%, it's actually making a selection. Because yes, you can raise toward friends and family. If you come from a universe where friends and family can. So, you know, like, I think the sector deprives itself from really talented people. Again, and we're talking about track records. We're talking about, like, we are all made all our careers in existing institutions. So the track record we had it in those institutions. We're not like just coming here inventing new things. And sometimes it's a bit painful because I see fund managers who comes from in investment banking, who suddenly...
Your 1 year bonus is 1 million, so
Exactly. And that's why. And so for them, they raise infrastructure debt fund for access to clean energy in Africa, where they had never, and super easy because they are in that universe, they are in that kind of connection, and they have these entry barriers doesn't exist, and they're gonna do great, huh? And but you know, it's we have the track record as well, yeah.
May I add on that? I think your point is 100% valid, that you want to have skin in the game because it shows commitment. And your point is also 100% valid because if you are creative and you come from a minority, and we need these diverse ideas in order to find a solution for the mess, the multi-crisis in which we are. We need diverse point of view, and we need to open and create a level playing field. And so if you could take as a point that instead of saying 1% of the fund size, half of the patrimoine or savings or something like that, so that you can show the skin in the game, because it's the, you know, for a woman who has €1 per day, 2 cents it's really a lot, or 10 cents. But for a woman who has a 1 million bonus, you know, €2, hey, you know, and yeah.
in all fairness, because I still want to have friends after this meeting, no? This is not my view, no? I also don't, I didn't get a 1 million bonus, no? But we are the same. I'm talking about for the microfinance industry. We are, if you want, in a smaller scale, it's the same discussion that we had when microfinance was to become commercial. No, it cannot become commercial. There are too many people, they have to go too far, it cannot become commercial. We have too many transactions. All of a sudden it became commercial, and then we had some MFIs that had ROEs over the roof. And some people made good money with microfinance. I think that's everything I can say. And the EIB, even if it's called whatever, if it's a green, socially responsible institution, judges with the same measure. This is a PE fund. I have a fund manager. I put money. I have a 5+5 time horizon. I want to see money out. And the people have to put their own skin in the game. That's how it is.
I don't want to cut the discussion, but maybe just to sum up a few things that were said, so that if you want to react before we end, because I would love not to have a ramp up that you all go. So what I've noted, I've heard, is some kind of entry barriers. So entry barriers could be cost, could be fund size, could be access to, I would say, multi-platform, what we've called white label compartments for smaller size funds with, I would say, shared cost on legal documentation, marketing, blah, 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 whatever. And maybe also some kind of mechanism that can facilitate or de-risk first capital grants. May say also have a partnership with DFIs, but also with other private but also public investors that could de-risk this first layer for each compartment, a first thing. I also understand that from investor perspective, it is important to have a valid checklist, commitment, skin in the game. I would say a solid strategy, but also understanding that if there are mandates, it's complex to go aside these mandates. I would also emphasize, and I think the comment was also very good, saying that it could be also very valuable when you show a project to understand what is the demand behind this project on the investee and we'll say on the ground perspective. Understanding better the demand could also be a good point to understand what should be the supply. So I certainly missed a few ideas, a few things, but I noted a lot. Would anyone comment, revert, please?
One more idea or something that maybe might still be missing, and maybe that's wishful thinking, but because I think it's clear the urgency that, and that we are all facing of the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis with a limited amount of time and years that we have in front of us. So we don't have 10, 15 years to wait for people to get track record. We don't have that. So maybe what we might need also is a new entity, because unfortunately I don't think we have already, that is willing to really take the risk and is willing to lose money when moving forward this first-time fund manager or these bright ideas that might not already have the track record, and kind of not only bring an accelerator to the point where they get to talk to investors, but really to move forward and like a impact VC that doesn't expect to have already a multiple of 10, 20, 30, because let's be honest, if you want to get to 2100, we might maybe not need to look only at 30 times multiple. We want to make sure that we get there.
Thank you. And maybe just to jump on your point, so you might not have a lot of investors that might be willing to lose money. But if you look at catalytic capital, you can have also different layers of philanthropic, I would say DFIs and more foundations that are ready to have lower returns and absorb the first loss. So it's most of the time how when you have a pilot, and just to mention that in the first time when we had the first cohort, the fund managers had big ambitions to fund for above 30 million. And most of the time now, what we see that they reduce ambition, but they create these small pilots. And for example, we had a fund manager which created his pilot with 2 million, so not so big. But he found, I would say, I don't remember exactly the number, and sorry for that. For this 2 million, he went to 10 or 15 financing rounds, having 30 or 40 small tickets, but he got it. And this, let's say, having invested 1.5 years with this pilot, with a few startups, climate startups, he built gradually start record. So now he's 8 million. And I think that definitely may be this, and I discussed with Cosmin, this kind of track record is seen as a real track record, by the way.
Very short on blended finance. This is the key to go with a compelling proposition to DFIs. Concretely, you have a base layer, which is provided by a foundation or by an NGO. Doesn't have to be big. It matters that it's there. And then you ask DFIs, okay, I want you to put a senior capital. And then it's already, the proposition is like, oh wow, so I'm protected, I provide senior capital, I get the upside, I'm not risky, I do impact, so the main thing is to start a discussion. So blended finance is the key of setting up impact funds. There is this topic of securitization with a good opinion. It can be because the area is unclear, but again, catalytic capital tranches on top senior tranches are a very compelling proposition.
Thank you. Maybe just because we are 2 minutes approximately, I think we are not going to be pushed outside, but if I can ask you 3 words to all speakers, and if anyone want to comment afterwards, happy to.
Yeah, first of all, I'm with Camille. I mean, we are pretty much skinned, so we don't need to be skinned in the game. I mean, we are really putting everything inside those funds, but I understand, of course, your mandate, and of course, this has to be met. But just kind of maybe going back to the lessons we've learned from the ICFA forum, I mean, one of the things which was said that, one of the conclusions was that we must, the holy grail for, and actually Barbara Boss was mentioning that the holy grail for DFIs or MDBs should be to bring private capital into climate. And therefore, I mean, in order to do that, that really has to be, there needs to be some kind of a game changer here, because if DFIs would continue as business as usual and would actually work with the base capital in order to attract return, which normally they would do because that economic cycle that has to happen. If it continues like that, indeed, if they raise bonds in the capital markets and then finance other things, we are not going to get there because this is not going to drive private funds going into those markets. So there needs to be some changes, and for instance, recently, I mean, there was actually very recently this week, there was a certain guarantee scheme provided for ADB by the likes of the US government and the Japanese government, I think in the sums of maybe almost $2 billion. And that thing allows them to actually get cheap financing, to free financing, which was already dedicated to climate, and then provide maybe perhaps cheaper financing to actually catalyze existing future projects. DFIs are the best positioned, and MDBs are the best positioned to drive this effort, and kind of putting together a new entity. It is a difficult agenda, of course, GCF, and there are other GEF, and things are working, but DFIs, in my view, are actually best positions because they are in the countries, they understand the challenges, they work very well with the partners, and they can assist also with technical assistance on the ground, with trusts and foundations. So just their capital, they needs to be revamped. They can take greater risk if they have actually a different capital incentive to do so, and then motivate the big funds to come with private capital, which, as I said, is very important.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think since last month, I have the opportunity to join many forums. I was at AFSIC, GIN, now European Microfinance Week. The same topics: climate, gender, youth, digitalization. And for me, what I will suggest, by taking also into consideration the track record that you must have in order to attract investors, to find also the way to diversify the activities, because there is a huge opportunity to work now with end beneficiary. If you see many DFI, they invest in the financial sector, but the risk is sitting at the hand of the end beneficiary, the demand side. So at FPM, we succeed also to raise funds via Visa Foundation to improve the financial literacy of end beneficiary. So when you combine the financial literacy to the guarantee, the portfolio guarantee that you manage, you will create more impact. And your portfolio guarantee will be used in the long run. It means that clients, MSMEs, and beneficiary, they knows how to behave. It means that you try to improve the profile of the demand. because today in the market we have a lot of opportunities to raise funds, but the barriers identified, this is also to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Very short, I think Yosef's conclusion was spot on. The current system is not, it's broken. Yeah, it's not conducive to impact, it's not conducive to supporting impact funds. Unfortunately, the future doesn't look bright, looking at what happens in US, looking at the elections, looking at the fact that EIB is discussing since months to invest a lot of money in dual-use technologies for military and civilian use, looking at the fact that Europe is bracing for protectionist measures by America, and a lot of money will have to go in Europe, looking at the fact that there is a huge pressure from retiring pensions and pensions in EU. It's not easy. It's not an easy environment, and therefore my huge respect to those of you who do this. Thank you.
Thank you for your openness and for pointing out the challenges we face. And as you said, we don't have 15 years. And I almost forgot that we are at the brink of a nuclear war in case it goes wrong, this conflict. And on the other hand, I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful that we can, with all these managers who showed their hands, who are committed to making a difference, we are on the right way. And I believe also, you didn't mention the technical assistance you're financing, you mentioned the mandates, but European Investment Bank is supporting hugely the green stock exchange in Luxembourg. So Luxembourg as a place, as a financial center for promoting inclusive finance and green finance is one of the, I would say, one of the biggest fund, well, the second biggest fund place in the world. So I guess if we have a chance to change something, it's in Luxembourg, and that's why I'm here in Luxembourg. And what, perhaps just to finish quickly, you mentioned it today in finance, impact finance, and let's say traditional and extractive, exploitive finance is measured the same way. And we need to change that. We need to show the value which is created by including women in decisions, by respecting nature, by respecting indigenous wisdom. All this needs to be shown as a value in a monetary form so that people who take the decisions can take this as valid to help monies flow into more sustainable activities.
No, and well, thank you, Laurence, and thank you, everyone. I think I really appreciate that we get to speak about those things, because that's the moment we can understand what are the constraints of all of us and imagine solutions. I don't think we can imagine solutions if we don't see the problems. I think as well with ICFA, there are like ways actually to go even further where you go, and based on this kind of discussions to go even further in waiving those barriers. And thank you to all of you around here, because I think we are all passionate people who dedicate a lot of their time and their life in something in which they believe. And we're gonna make it.
Thank you to all of you. Before ending this session, a small call to action. So we would like to extend this discussion to a community of practice ICFA will launch. If you're interested to keep in touch, we will share some flyers. So if you want to keep in touch, get on our website and to be part of this community of practice, please do not hesitate to register. And happy if you want, you will have our contact details. If you want to add things, if you want to some takeaways that have not been mentioned to be included in this takeaways in this discussion, do not hesitate to share them, because our objective is not to keep silent excellent discussions we had here. It's really to make them more public and to create awareness and to understand better problems to find adequate solutions. Thank you.